Hi everyone, welcome to Exception. What I've decided to do is we're going to go through everything. From the very beginning of metering all the way through to start doing different validations and how they work with different networks. So, some of you don't know each other. What we're going to do is, I've got some handouts and things that I'm going to give you. When we look at exceptions, when we look at metering, with exceptions, normal accounts that go out, they just go straight out the door. But what we look at are the ones that get stuck in the system. And they're the ones that we're going to look at today. Now, we've got different people from different areas joining us. So, we just go around the room and just say where you're from and how you touch exceptions, I suppose, how you work. So, just your first name and what area. And you want to start, Deborah? What are exceptions? One bit. What are exceptions to? And then previously to enforcement, so we take the customer side as well. Thank you, Deborah. Nice. Pretty much. Okay. Yes, I'm in the ID and gathering transactions on my I am Kate, I'm from the CPC in Australia, and I've been doing exceptions for a while. I was together with Rosie there and the transaction. Actually, I am the transaction. Yeah, who's in Howarth? Now, Kerry is here just to observe, so she's sitting in here for me today. I'm from the Learning and Development team, so I'm a third for the technology society and thank you.
I don't really know where I sit at the moment, all over the place. But generally I'll touch major networks that are that's what I do.
Actually, that's a good segue.
Yeah, my name's Mark. I'm in the contact centre, and as well as taking calls, I work on the futures queue, which is a wide variety of reads that may be sitting in there, may not be pushing things in. So I assume a lot of that goes sort of looking at our exceptions that you may have as well. Get around that. Quite interesting.
Okay, now one of the main things that we look at in exceptions is making decisions. We can put all sorts of parameters in place, and you've got to send a letter for this, and you've got to do that. But at the end of the day, you are the one who's making the call. So if I can get everybody standing up, please. We're going to go out onto the balcony. Everybody standing up, please, and let's go out onto the balcony.
We're going to go first.
Okay, everybody can stand in the middle. I'm going to give you a choice. Sleeping or get up early?
Oh God, what day of the week?
Sleeping or get up early? Does everyone make a choice? Yes? read or favourite? Yep. Who's over here? Favourite over here? Right. Why would you go for that, Deborah? Gold was taken or punches? Right. Are you a summer student or a winter student? Oh, this is on the middle. I like what I'm thinking of. Last one, big party or big party or we're all going out later. Okay, the last one that I want to do is when you go into the swimming pool, you jump in the deep end or you like the deep end. Okay, jump in the deep end or get in slowly. Just dive right on. Oh, right. Okay, remember your ramp up. Let's head back inside. Okay, there's a specific reason why I asked the last one. Between jumping in the deep end or heading in slowly. And that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about today and this afternoon. We are looking at accounts every day from the customer's point of view. When we send out an enormous bill to them, we're pretty much throwing them in the deep end, aren't we? There's no warning, there's no nothing, we're just saying, here's a bill for $785, single thing. Whereas if we send out if we see maybe and we give that customer some kind of a contact, some kind of warning, then they're going to kind of get their account and go, you know what, she did tell me about this, and I know that everything's in place and there won't be such a shock. So, let's move on to here. Now, to do exception training, to actually be able to push out exceptions. I know that Malcolm and Chanel, and I know that Rosie and Deborah both did it in the course as well. You learn to calculate the average daily usage. Yes? You learn to go through and calculate FCC on the FCC screen and use the main consumption and then work out the formula to work out FCC. We all know how to do IBP. We know how to do instant billing. We've all done that training before. That is a prerequisite, definitely, for doing exceptions, because that's mostly what we do. Charges and tariffs, I've thrown that in there because you need to know what a 10 or a 20 on water service charges and water usage charges are, whether or not it's domestic, residential, non-residential, all those sorts of things. You need to have an understanding of what they are. The overnight testing procedure. Contracts need to know that a lot more than we do because they're speaking to the customers all the time. They have high bills. Have you done an overnight test? And I know that the T team know about that as well. We just may not have spoken to customers about it. Customer contact re high consumption, knowing how to reverse and rebill. Whether to, who knows ROI or ROI? Can I get, yeah?
Right. Before you reverse anything, if it's on schedule, you need to look at your TRA screen to see whether there's an invoice sitting there. If it's only tenant confined, that means something's holding it. If you need to reverse and rebill, if there's an invoice sitting there, you go to the appropriate customer, whether it's 1-2 or a 2-2, open it up, look at your charges, see what it is. You would then go to that appropriate customer, 1-2 or 2-2, and use ROI. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is it's going to flip out the previous bill, it's all going to explode in your face, and then you're going to have a lot of trouble fixing it.
How would you see whether or not to do an RLS or ROI? TRA? What are you looking at on TRA? I'm looking for something. No statement produced. Yeah. Does everybody know about the drainage service charge anomaly that happens when you reverse out too many accounts? Do you all understand that if you reverse too many accounts and rebill them, that you need to be checking drainage charge because there's something in Jayne track that won't sometimes just you need to check. Know what it should be, and then when you trial it, check it. Reversing and rebuilding multiple accounts. Pretty much the same. You guys can do that, kind of. You can do single.
I've done more than one.
Yeah. It's the same. You just need to be aware that it's the person you're doing that. And the last thing about reverse and rebuilding is doing it in a network. What is the number one rule when you're reversing in a network, Malcolm? Yeah. Yes. Yes, very important. We've got some business rules about back charge. How far back can we charge a customer? 12 months from the date of issue. There's also a 5 kiloliter policy that I've put there, but we'll go into that in the next one. And the last one, which is DINR. Does anyone know what that means? DINR is a code that we use when we reverse off of an account. Customer rings up and says, my reading was actually 1,000. You've got a reading of 3,872. Really wrong. So we reverse it off, put in that code, and rebuild using the correct one.
And no, if it was no
if it's no one, yeah. And the last one is the escalated customer contact process in TT. We're still going and sending people over to talk to Neil. So Neil, if there's a really high leak, so that Neil Fisher from Credit actually goes out and speaks to the customer and lets them know right then and there. Really good customer service. So there's a few other things that we can do. So there are prerequisites for exceptions. And what does that mean? Prerequisite means before you can move on to exceptions, it's really good if you know the basics. Good one. So we'll be going through all these basics.
Jayne, I had one question on screen, which focuses on there was an actual minute that was
Yeah.
GBD? Yeah. It's an exception here. So if you need to approve something, when you how you hit your F3, if it comes up with the validation, you then need to go to GBD. It'll bring you and it'll show you the errors.
Down the bottom, when you go online invoice validation, that screen that you see on there is called GBD.
So I'll use another source.
Yeah. You've already seen it before. So, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to go through an overview of an exception, no statement produced, metering overview, have a little bit of a more in-depth look at networks. I know that we go through them in induction. There's a few people in here that haven't been through induction. So I thought what we might do today is all start at the base, and that way we can do more. And the last one that I wanted to touch on today is excessive estimates and what the dangers are when we have too big estimates. So, we all know, some of us already have this. Can you take one of these and pass it around, please? What I'm sending around to you now is the actual reading calendar. Now we get this at the beginning of every quarter, and it shows us an awful lot of information that I would like you to have a look at and understand. Can you just turn the light on the home screen for a moment? There's enough there. There's enough there, Kim.
Oh, that's all right. I'm quite happy to share.
Oh, okay.
She's right.
So,
cool delegation.
Okay, you'll see a lot of different colours on there. The purple is for the monthlies. So you can see every month we've got readings happening. Going from left to right, you've got your district number. Now some people know the districts off by heart. They'll just say, oh, we're billing 42 at the moment, or we're actually billing Werribee. So you go on, you see the districts Werribee around you know what a round is? Can someone tell me what a round is? A round or a sequence? A round is a bunch of pretty much house blocks. So there's a certain amount of meters per house block. Let's say there's 13 in one block. So they put a whole lot of house blocks together to make a round. So this is what the meter readers use. So let's have a look at, does anybody live in this area? Does anybody live in the US Borders area? Malcolm, what district do you live in? What's right? So let's flip over the page and see if we can find Footscray on here. Okay. Let's say Malcolm lives in sequence 19025. Can people see that under rounds? Third down in Footscray, 19025. If we follow that along, we can see that there's 13 rounds in that 13 sequences in that. Yeah. We're going to send the information down to our meter readers on the 25th, 28th of May. They're going to actually read your place, Malcolm, on the 29th of May, and then send the information back up to us. So the exception comes out on the 3rd of June. So you can see that from the from the 28th all the way through to the 3rd of June is when we actually are looking at Malcolm's property. Now, if Malcolm had a leak at the property and all of a sudden his consumption goes through the roof, they're going to read his meter, and the exception is going to just go through this system. I want to take this through with you because at the top what we've got is the reading of your house in Footscray. It goes through to Gentrack. It gets uploaded into Gentrack, and then it comes down here through night moves. It gets uploaded, goes through night moves that night. If, for example, you've got a high leak, does it pass the Gentrack rule because it looks at your past consumption? Does it pass the rule? No, it doesn't. It sits over here in exceptions. The exceptions team go in an ideal world, the next day. They go in and have a look at it. They'll actually go through and either push it out. They might give you a ring if it's really high. If they push it out, then it goes to the billing run and it goes out. If for some reason we need to maybe do a double check of your meter, get somebody out there to have a look, raise an SRM, then it sits there in the system and gets picked up in the second wave, which we call cleanup. So then it goes through again, bills produced, maybe not, there's no statement produced. So there's a whole row of reasons why the account doesn't go out the door. But in the end, what we all want is for the account to go for the customer to get the statement. So you can see that exceptions are merely accounts that don't pass them. And they just make the system stop going. There's two sorts. There's ones that are very simple. We love finding those things. And then there's some that are very complex. You might find a new tenant that's gone into a property. We've talked about it. There's no recent consumption for them to have a look at. So Gentrack looks at it and goes, well, I think 38 is really, really high compared to what? Compared to nothing. So it raises an exception. So we can just push those ones out. But it could be a really high consumption on a main meter, and they're the ones that we actually have to look at in a lot more detail. Is there any questions on this at all? Any questions on the exceptions process? Hi. I'm glad you asked. So you can just pass those around.
Can you see so?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Chanel, isn't it? Chanel and Malcolm, have you ever found a old exception sitting in there, sitting in Gentex? Customers rung up and said, why didn't I get my account? You can see now why sometimes it's just, and it sits there, or sometimes we don't even find it until we do the cleanup. Because we'll do that another day. So we've gone through the meters, the meter readers. Go out there and have a look. There's our Footscray office. Very, very nice. No, it's going to look like no. It looks nice, doesn't it? So from the meter, through the meter reader, who uploads it into the office, and then of course it goes out to the customer. And that's our cycle. No.
This one's chunkier.
This is a special person from Canada who posed for the shot. Toronto water, I think it was. But definitely in the afternoon, I will.
The chunky.
I'll remember to do that. Okay, so let's start with the very basics. You've all learnt this before. We've got a single meter and we've got networks. Simple, complex. Who knows what we call those exceptions? Who knows what the black pipe is?
My house had one.
Yes? What is it? It's a straight piece.
Just go around there twice.
Oh.
Yeah, just have what
So we've got a straight piece that, and the meter actually goes over that. Well, it's for when they're building. And then they put the actual meter on there, and then they can go out and start reading. But when we get to here, when you've got a 6 unit setup, where you've got check meters, there's different types that they can go in and read. They can either go in and try and stand on the ladder and actually read all of these, or what they've usually got is a box, a readout box, so that they can go in and actually see the reads on that box, or they might have a cycle. You all know what a cycle is? Yeah? That's the actual remote that sits on the meter that they can actually pick up on their handheld. So you can imagine when there's so many on here, what's a couple of things that we've found from customers when there's check meters? A reading might be wrong for a couple of different reasons. They might have to do that why. They might have wrong accounts. Yeah? Read the wrong meter. Yeah? Transpose is another one as well. It actually says unit 3, but it's actually for unit 1. So we're billing unit 3, unit 1's water. So they might actually put in the reading for unit 3, but they're actually looking at unit 1. So you'll get like one that's really, really high and one that's the correct consumption. So there's all sorts of things that you need to have in your mind to think about when you actually do this description. Okay, so let's go into, we've got single meter, then we've got networks, M-type, P-type, and C-type. We haven't even talked about them yet. So we've got 3 houses here. Is this a network, this one here? It's not, is it? What we call this one is, it's been separately tapped into the main that runs along the bottom here. So unit 2 up the back has been separately tapped straight into the meter. So it's not actually a network at all. The second one along here, this is a network. What kind of network is this one? An M-type, because we've got a separate meter up the back, and then we've got another check meter on the front of the house as well as a main meter. So you all know that if 100 kilolitres goes through the main meter, and there's 50 on this and 45 on this, where does the 5 kilolitres get billed? On the main meter. So sometimes we might get an exceed variance on the main meter, mightn't we? If they're used to having no excess, then all of a sudden we're going to start getting usage on here. Maybe they've got a dog, maybe they've got a high fence out the back and they can't get a reading. And this isn't really deducting what it should be. What about this last one over here? We've got, what kind of a network is that one? It's a P-type, isn't it? Because you've got the house plus this place out the back. So here's the house, one that I prepared earlier. The owner rang up the other day saying that he had a tenant going into that bungalow out the back. And here's the bungalow. So, yes, Mr. rang up saying that he's been getting this really high account, about 200 kilolitres a quarter. When we go in and have a look at it, we see that the bungalow is actually not separately checked. He's been giving them the usage account for his house, and the tenant's been living out the back. So there's a lot of them still on G-Track. And usually you find the notes, has anybody found notes? There's a few different screens that you put it on. Anyone found any notes about it, a bungalow out the back? Yes, in the pink bit on con?
Could be in MEC, IOD.
On the second page of IOD, yeah.
Can be on the front con screen and one, two. Multiple areas.
Yeah.
Putting this sort of information.
So if you ever see a tenant on one where it says bungalow out the back and there's no meter on there, then we actually need to take all of them. Sometimes you can find that different tenants have been on 8, 9 times. Some people just keep finding them and taking people off all the time.
And that's when there should be a note made on the front, so it shows on the screen, do not put tenants on this property.
I'm actually going to give out an information pack on all of the networks this afternoon when we go and have a look at them in depth as far as to the next section.
Have you got anything on Z? Not that they should get any.
We're actually going to talk about Z in the 4th week, but now that you touch on it, first of all I want to go through the M-type. So what do we typically see in an M-type network?
Main and checks.
Main and checks, yeah. P-type network, theta. What normally makes up a P-type network? Yeah. A main and associate. There's 2 different sorts of P-type networks. What would they be? Can somebody tell me those? 2 different sorts of P-types. Split and non-split. But we're talking about the split here. So you might have the main meter and the house that we saw over there. He keeps on getting in trouble for billing his tenants, but he's just decided to keep the most split to the house. And then you just. So there's 2 different sorts of P-type, and then the last one is a C-type. Who can tell me what a C-type is? Yeah.
A combination of leaders and non-leaders.
Yeah. Yeah. So some people choose to put checks on, and the rest of the people, they don't have a check meter on. So if 100 goes through, and 50 has gone to the check meters, that last 50 has to get divided up amongst the people with no meter. That's the most common.
Not necessarily. We go back to the main.
If it's a no split?
Yeah.
Yes.
Normally these commercial properties that are okay. Half metered.
Yeah. Sorry, is it the most common? Most common would be single or M-type.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you look at places like the Docklands, who went and developed these huge, great big skyscrapers, put in private checks, thought that City West Water would read them all. Does that mean that it's turned on? I don't know. Think that it would read them all, and City West Water said no, we don't read private checks. So now that huge, great big thing is a huge P-type because we won't read their checks. So,
unfortunately, most of that isn't set. Someone blew it up. Then after that,
Z type.
They're very few. We don't allow it to happen.
Okay, Z type. Oh, have you?
Yeah, I got it in. So I just put the type, but I had three of them. The back.
Was it an exception?
And then I did it. Yeah.
Okay, let's go through what a Z type is, just so that everybody knows what we're talking about. Let's just say this is the fire service, but we can explain it by looking at here. A Z type means that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties with a check meter on them. A Z type is this person down here at the end decides to build a bungalow out the back. So he puts a check meter off his house. So to build that person, we actually have to take all of this off the main meter, then take his usage off that one and bill it separately. We don't allow that anymore, and we're trying to get rid of them all. That's what a Z type is. Whenever you see it, it's a check.
Yeah, it's a multiple properties being built off a check.
Yeah. So that brings us to fire service meters. Do fire service meters supply usage to check meters? They don't.
2012, yes. After that, no.
What is going to come in soon? Do you know what a fire service meter is? Of course, it's for when there's a fire.
The high flow rate meter.
Yeah. So basically they sit out the front. If there's a fire, it goes straight through, and there's usually some kind of a bypass. What is coming in though is a general meter that supplies both fire service and potable water as well. So we're not going to be able to see what they are. But when you go in and do a network on M&M, you're all familiar with the M&M screen? Let me just go in.
If I set the network and see.
Hopefully it hasn't. Has it done it? No. Doesn't like it, does it? It's done that stupid thing where it says I'm ending. Isn't it? Yes. Why is it doing that? Okay, on M&M, which is the screen that shows what? What can somebody tell me about M&M? Yeah? So it shows. Yeah? Exactly. What's a good network? How about we just do Cherry Street?
Oh.
That'll do. I just want
dangerous. That's birth territory.
I just want to show M&M screen, so I figured that's a pretty good one.
Right.
Did you know that every network has its own? 27. It's really hot in here. Okay, so let's stop here first of all. What we've got here is we've got two mag flow meters starting with F. F150 meters, magnetic meters. Yeah. You will see sometimes in the old days we used to have FS after them. You've seen meters with FS for fire service on them. What we would expect to see is when we go into here. Okay.
That was the 2012 one.
While that's loading. So we see here that the magflow meter is actually being connected to the whole network. When you go into the fire service meter, it's got nothing here and you click enter. It's got nothing here because the fire service doesn't actually supply the check meter. So that's something to have a look for or when you're going through daily looking at your exceptions. Because as we go forward, we don't want things to stay the way they are. If it's possible, we want to fix things as we go. Yeah? So if you see a fire service meter that's attached to 422 checks, there's something else that I've seen on the screen too. Yes, everybody else? Yeah.
Of course you have.
Then that shouldn't be that way. Can anybody else see something else on this screen that's screaming at them saying, I want to go and
Kill someone
look
now.
at somebody? Okay. It says here, when this whole network was first set up, it supplied 425 checks. This box up here automatically shows how many are in that actual field here. So when this network was first set up, it was 425. At the moment, it's only 422.
Tag missing.
There's 3 gone. So this is just an example. I don't know who's in it. We're just looking at this as an example.
They're all over the shop. They're disgraceful.
So when we remove a meter out of the network, and it goes overnight, Night Moves then runs and goes, this one must be not here anymore. I'll remove it. And it's gone. So whichever one, let's just say it's 904. It goes through to 905. 904 is just sitting in there by itself, not part of the network or anything. It's crucially important that we put that into the network. That's a very good example. So that's our M&M screen. And you can have a look and see what our network number is up there on the right hand side. So every network has a number. Jayne? Yeah?
Can you find a network by the network number?
No, I don't think so.
No, unfortunately not. Yeah, I know.
The next screen that I want to take you through is the MNH screen.
Can we just go back there? The next one media. Are we going to go into detail about like what they actually are? Because I've heard a bit about it. Like when I went to deal with Julian from the council, she explained a little bit about it. But that's how you literally tell it the name for it and find it in the number.
Yeah, or 100.
It doesn't matter like what the
They're 100, 150, 200. That's as far as we go.
and then how does it work? Because it's like music. The way that you
No mechanical.
Yeah.
No.
And it's a pulse. Captures the pulse of the water goes through. So with the normal meter, there's like a cylinder in there in the meter. So as the water passes through it, ticks over the numbers.
Yeah.
Right? With a mechanical, that's mechanical. With your mag flows, they're electronic, so it captures pulses. So it does the same thing, but there's no turning parts for it to get blocked or whatever. So with a pulse, it captures the pulse and it factors that in. So there might be 5,000 pulses for X amount of milliliters. They're predetermined. So depending on their size, it's set in at the factory how many pulses will equal what. And they generally don't do it in kiloliters, it's in parts. And most mag flows, we work in like 0.2 with your mechanical meters. You'll see there's four black numbers and 2 red. Mag flows, I've done 3 square. So it's not 2. And they have decimal points. But we only look at full numbers.
But there's nothing really going into more of that.
We can, for sure. Yeah. I would like to actually get a physical meter so that you can have a look at the workings of the meter if you haven't been out to some of your house and a meter. But certainly all the different sorts of meters that there are. Obviously we can't bring in the huge crazy ones. There's
Just
also
go and look at the ones out front. But they're mechanical.
Perception has a meter.
yeah.
Yeah, they're the 20 mil, don't they? Yeah.
And there's one more meter that people don't usually get to see, and that's the trade weight meter. So the normal water comes into the factory, and then when it's pumping out on the discharge, it actually monitors how much discharge it's doing. So we have trade weight, which is one of the ones.
Yeah, but they're not still that way.
meter history is MNH, the Zoom code MNH. What it shows me here is some nasty rubbish in here, but it shows what has been billed in that network. So if there's been a final reading, if there's been a final estimate, if people have been trying to reverse and rebuild, and there's lots of stuff in there, you'll see that in there. But the total amount, 133, is what is about to come off next time to build.
Providing there's no garbage in it.
Providing there's no garbage in there. We're just going to talk in a normal happy world. In a normal happy world, no one's been fiddling, and this is fabulously clean. You know what I mean by clean? Yes? If you reverse and rebuild too many times, you start getting old quarters stuck in here as well. That actually has to go into every single line and delete manually when that happens, so that it becomes clean again. Because what we want in that screen up here, 133, is the total amount that's being billed out of the network. Let's just say that they go in and they read the main meter. The consumption is 135 in the main meter. It goes into this screen and has a look. 133. I'll bill the main meter 2 kiloliters. So that's how that helps us bill networks. Very, very important. If you're pushing out an exception on a main meter, this screen has to be clear by the time you finish. We need to be checking that this is gone. If this hasn't gone, don't move on. We need to have a look and see why it hasn't moved on.
And you can't delete from an M type.
No, it's only P type.
You can blow it up. That's it. But you can't delete it.
And that's the other day. I'm going to do a whole session. Yeah.
When you got made and you want to get rid of the screen,
Yeah.
if you're doing one for rehearsals, you've got to manually come in and delete the reads that's sitting there that build up.
Here, P
You
type.
this is an M type. So for an M type, if you're going to reverse and rebuild a check meter for multiple, what you do is you take the check out of the network. You reverse, you rebuild to just before the current quarter, put it back in and build the current quarter so it captures it there. Otherwise, it won't release the
Why
money.
you don't leave it in the network and have the result of it.
You want to see a result of someone, see, there's removed third line down, C1210. Now, if you look at the previous read date, they're all in February. And we're billing for, where are we billing for? March? Where are we billing for? April, maybe.
Yeah.
So, because that was a previous quarter, that will never come out of that screen, ever. Because what happened was, something's happened in the billing process so that when you bill a main meter, what it does is it looks at all of this. If it's within the quarter that it wants to bill, it'll go, okay, you'll release the main, you can bill it, and you can clean out everything except previous quarter stuff. It doesn't take that into consideration because it shouldn't be there. So everything that's there for the current quarter will disappear, won't be there anymore. They don't leave. And depending on how big the network is, if it's only a little one, it's no big issue. But when you get ones like this with 400 checks, 125, 700 checks, what can happen is it'll build to such a point where you cannot release the main meter because there's just so much crap left in MNH, and it just goes, I can't do this anymore. And then you have to go, oh my God, I need to blow this whole thing up.
Because you've had some exceptions like that, Charlene, where you keep trying to build the main meter and it just won't go, and the exception keeps coming up all the time. This is one of the reasons why, because it's just hanging on to stuff and it says, well, this all doesn't make sense to me.
I can't do this anymore.
I just can't have it a meltdown.
Basically, it gets to a point because there's not infinite lines within that screen. So that once it reaches its capacity, if it's not going to be cleaned out, it's going, I can't do this. You need to make something right before I can do this. And that's a whole more complex process.
Okay, speaking of complex, let's leave that one.
And then that's something we'll go and
Yes, Yes.
This is all just the system's all just
It's just a
brief,
basic.
yeah.
Just a basic. Yeah. And then as we go further on, we're going to look at network and what the consequences are. And by doing that, we have to go into detail. But this is just an overview, I suppose, of the different networks. This is from GIS, which is our mapping that we use. And the blue is water, the red is sewer lines. So you can see this is the part in Werribee. Over here we've got all of these houses that have all got water and sewage. And then over here we've got houses with only water going to them. Now, Chanel and Malcolm, we've had phone calls maybe from people in Werribee South, perhaps, who say, have I got sewer on my property? I don't seem to have that on my. Have you ever had a question like that?
Werribee South is
Werribee South has a lot of farms and things.
No, there's pockets.
Yeah.
Don't ask me where the sewer goes to, but there's actually little pockets over here, come up here, and then.
Okay, let's have a look at this house. Let's have a quick look at this house who we're going to be finishing up very shortly. There's a house that's sitting over here at the middle of nowhere. He has no water. He's been on rainwater tanks for ages. He decides he wants to get water, but the nearest water is over here. Does anybody know what's in place for this customer who has no water?
They buy water.
They do. They can buy water.
Standpipes.
Standpipes. The other thing that they can do is actually pay to get their own private main put in.
I don't think they're allowing that to happen anymore. Too much problems.
Really?
Oh God, yeah. Disaster.
There are still some on Gentrack though. Private trust services.
Mostly little river and that.
So this person, the little house down the end that we showed you just before, he actually has a meter, but it's on his own main. If anything happens to this, if he wants to go out and fix it, this is his main. He has to maintain it himself. So it's almost like this is the house here. You know where the responsibility lies after the meter? Well, the responsibility lies after the tap in here. He has to fix up everything that's in that trunk. So if it's a whole street that is all put in that they all want water, it's kind of like an unofficial body. They don't have to put in to try and get it all fixed. So that's what we call a trunk service or a private main that people go and put in when they're out in the middle of nowhere. The other thing that I wanted to show you, I just thought this was so nice. This is a farmer down at Werribee South. It's a nice coloured kitty. I love this one. So he's gone and built a house down here. A big colour kitty house. Yeah?
The guy owns that house.
Yeah. He owns his house and he lives down just here in this block down here. And so he has no sewer. I mean, we've seen here that it's only water line. So it's a lot like here. They've got no water at all, but this guy's got no sewer at all. Has anybody lived in the country? Yes. You'll know what he needs to put in. A septic tank.
Hello Kitty septic tank.
A Hello Kitty septic
Oh
tank.
my God, he's lost the plot. Oh, so old.
But he's got a beard, so I don't know what he was.
Obviously a long time ago.
So he's put in the septic tank. Now on the system, as far as charge class, who can tell me what the charge class will be for this property?
If it's farm, it'll be NCWN.
Why will it be NCWN? Good question. Because there's no sewer. So there's no S on it, is there? Because it's a septic tank. What if the customer wants you to say, can you please go out and check, if I'm on sewer? Would you raise an SRM and get somebody out there to have a look?
Have a look at GIS.
You can have a look at GIS for sure, but if you send a meter reader out there to have a look, what's he going to find? There's just, this is all gets covered up. You don't get to actually see Hello Kitty after a while. It gets all covered up.
So I have no idea whether it's on the
So we've spent how much?
reading.
$6.50? Sending the guy out there to have a look for, we don't know what. So that's trunks and tanks. Yes, you may.
Question time.
Yes.
How is that true? It'll generally have a note in IOD, private main, because they construct it themselves, unless we, generally what happens is it's farmland, the bulk of them, so we do have a shopping complex that is a private main.
Ooh, do share. I don't know.
Oh no, I don't want to share it with you at all, it's blood resulting. And what happens is we'll have our mains going to a certain point. We then allow them to tap in. We'll do the tapping for them to run their main, but they need to construct their main first. We'll inspect it, they'll do a test prior, then they'll tap it in and they'll open it up. They can put whatever they like on that. We don't care. Generally, it's farmland where they decide they're going to subdivide the farmland. So you may have a huge, like 32 hectare lot, and you'll chop it down into maybe 5 hectares, so that the guy next door who buys 5 hectares, he can then punch into that main to get his water. But we'll only maintain it to where that tapping is. The problem is generally the tapping is nowhere near the house. There's some in Werribee South where it's like 3 k's from where the house is, and I don't believe they allow them to actually do that anymore because of the dramas that we had in actually finding the meters, issues that were going on in the private mains and all the rest of it. But there are some still out there. Normally we have a main and we'll decommission it. And
We might go into
over.
that. We might go into that in a couple of weeks' time when we're
Right.
around different kinds of things. Okay, so this is a special present for you all that I've made.
Lights on?
Lights on, yes please. Okay, so today we've gone through network types and the meter reading process. We've got a new exception that's about to hit GenTrack very soon, called either the zero consumption or the executive consecutive validation. So if it's been estimated more than 3 times, we're going to get a validation on that. So that is fantastic. We're going to talk about excessive estimates. We'll probably bring that one up in the next session. I want you to have a think about it over lunch. What are the dangers of having too many estimates on a property? What are the things that can happen if we estimate too many times over months, sometimes over years? And then we'll come back and I'll be interested to hear all of your answers. We might break into a couple of groups and we'll just go through what we've thought about over lunch and we'll share it with everybody. Thanks for the mic. So, yeah, I'll cover that in just a second. So are there any questions on what we've spoken on today? It was very basic today, just talking about networks and meters, but we're going to go into more detail with all of those. We're going to start on time at 1:30 this afternoon in the Wally Humphrey room. Everybody knows where the Wally Humphrey room is? Yeah? Can you bring a pen and a notebook with you and maybe a drink? Because we're all going to have our own computers and log in this afternoon to go through some exceptions. I've really appreciated this is for both sessions, this evaluation form. So you'll notice there's some things in here that we haven't covered yet. If you could leave those and then answer those at the next session, that would be really good. Anonymous? Or do you want to... Sorry. It can be anonymous. No. It can be anonymous if you want to. I would really value your feedback. just so that we can get the training right. If it's what you needed, if you learned something, anything. If it was too long, too short, whatever you like, please. If you don't have enough room, put something on the back. There's plenty of room on the back.
So did you say this is for after the next session, isn't it?
You can do, I need you to fill it in for this session, and then you're going to get another one after the next session.
So where does that bring some of this?
That's what I was just saying before.
Sorry, Jane.
Yeah, if you want, Jane, let them you can get them to do it at the end. Yeah?
Yeah, I thought
I
overview.
that it was a follow-on session. So
Yeah,
I think
Alright, don't worry, Amy.
Thinking out Scotty.
Okay. Sorry. I'll take a look at that. And you can have fun with your crosswords over lunch and bring those back with you. You can check through everything that we're going through. Thank you all for coming. And I'll see you at 1:30 this afternoon out of the Holly Humphrey room.
what is that?
Thank you, Terry.
There you go.
Jane, do you want to
Cool. Then you're done.